You know, David, yesterday I sat down with two other very happy men, the minority leader of the House and the minority leader of the Senate. In both cases, very happy to have some good news. Take a listen to some of that as we wire up Jonathan Martin.
You've got a lot of newly elected Democrats, because they had 2 good years in a row, who were hanging on by their fingernails, being pushed by the Speaker and the Majority Leader to support legislation that they now know for sure their constituents don't approve of.
I think there's a political rebellion going on in America. And what we saw last night was just a glimpse of it.
We're joined now by Politico's Jonathan Martin, and you heard Chairman Steele there. We're coming after you, he says, to Republicans who might support health care or the stimulus package.
Or the stimulus package. Well, who supported the stimulus package? A governor from a large state in this country by the name of Charlie Crist, who's facing a primary next year that is increasingly becoming the next version of New York 23. He is now saying, as you guys mentioned earlier, that he didn't support it, but I was there in Fort Myers. He was supporting the stimulus package. And you now have the chairman of the RNC saying, no, even moderate Republicans, it's not okay for you to support the stimulus and health care. And one of your most prominent candidates definitely supported the stimulus.
It did sound like a warning sign to Charlie Crist, but it also explains why Charlie Crist is trying to flip on this from yesterday. The chairman is saying, going forward, you can't be campaigning supporting the stimulus, and Charlie Crist is basically saying, I'm trying not to campaign that I supported the stimulus, right?
But he did. I mean, I was there. He was definitely for it, and he's trying to sort of, you know, go back on that now. It's going to be a very, very hard sell because of that video and those stills.
All right. Well, do you buy the argument, though, that, and I talked to both Boehner and McConnell about this yesterday. They said, look, New York 23 is a different situation. Yeah. There's a third-party candidate there. This will get worked out in the primaries in almost every case, and there's not something that Republicans really have to worry about next fall.
Right. That's the argument that I got over the weekend, too, from a lot of different Republicans saying, if you have a fair and equitable primary process, then folks will come together and they'll sing Kumbaya and be on the same team. And this didn't happen in the case of New York 23. I don't totally buy that. I mean, I think that if you have a candidate as far to the sort of left as Casa Faso was, and she was out of the mainstream fiscally and culturally in the party, then I think you're going to see some conservatives still run as third party. I think it's a question of how moderate the candidate is, right? Can the base live with somebody? Is it a candidate who happens to support abortion rights, but is largely conservative fiscally? I mean, if that's the case, right, I think they're okay. But if you go as far as she went, I think you're going to still see some third-party candidates.
And that could spell trouble. I mean, that could produce the results that happened in New York 23, where Democrats can squeak by if there is a viable third-party candidate.
But and Mark Kirk, though, could probably survive, right?
I was going to say, and it depends on where, of course. You know,
exactly.
And how that all plays out. I want to turn your attention to these Axelrod comments that we were talking to Steele about as well. This idea, and Van Hollen's been doing too, of just, I mean, no running away whatsoever.
Right.
It's totally different than what we heard from Tom Reynolds in 2006 of like,
run your own campaign.
Run your own campaign.
Run your own campaign.
So what do you make of that?
Well, I think they're looking at the Democratic base that didn't show up on Tuesday, and they're seeing the path to victory that a lot of liberals in the party are seeing, which is you've got to embrace President Obama. That's the way to get youth out. That's the way to get African Americans out. And if you don't do that, if you don't get your base out, then you're going to have political problems next year. Well, for folks like Parker Griffith in Alabama, a freshman House member in a very conservative state, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. And there's going to be about 25, 30 freshman, sophomore Democrats who just aren't going to want to follow President Obama and who are going to want to try and carve out their own paths. And they're seeing those results from yesterday, and they're pretty damn scared.
That's just it. I mean, if you make the argument it's going to be about Obama in 2010, you have to also say it wasn't about him in 2009. And there's evidence, obviously, the independents, the voters that showed up for him before didn't show up this time.
Right. The independent, I think, metric is probably the most scary thing for those Democrats. Not just that it happened in Virginia, but it happened in Jersey, too. And it wasn't 8 to 10 points. I mean, it was
2 to 1.
A huge,
it was 2 to 1
swing.
in both states.
It was a huge, huge swing.
So we'll be looking at all the races, despite what David Axelrod would like from us. Politico's Jonathan Martin, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Welcome back from the Garden State, sir.
Happy to be home.
That does it for this edition of Top Line. Be sure to click us on again tomorrow.
It's twitter.com/TheNote. Remember, Yankees won the World Series. Don't forget it. Jack Klein gets his wish.
Mike Bloomberg, now Yankees fan.